Amara was a woman of strength and independence. She had always believed in living life on her own terms, standing tall no matter what came her way. She worked hard, cared deeply for her family and friends, and had dreams that reached far beyond the city where she lived. New York City was her home, a place full of energy, possibilities, and challenges. She loved the city's rhythm, its endless lights, and the way it never truly slept. On this particular evening, Amara was dressed for an important event, a charity gala held at one of the grandest hotels in Manhattan. The gala was a big deal, filled with important people from different walks of life. Business leaders, artists, politicians, and socialites all gathered to raise money for a cause close to Amara's heart: education for underprivileged children. She had been invited by one of her closest friends, and though she didn't usually attend such glamorous events, she wanted to show support. She had spent hours preparing, carefully choosing her dress, making sure everything was perfect but still true to her simple style. As she entered the grand ballroom, she felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. The room was full of chatter and laughter, soft music playing in the background. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling, sparkling like stars, casting warm light over the guests. Amara found a quiet corner near the large windows, where she could watch the city lights twinkle far below. She wasn't looking for attention or drama. She wanted to enjoy the evening, maybe meet a few new people, and most importantly, stay true to herself. As she sipped her drink, she noticed a tall man standing across the room, talking quietly with a few others. There was something about him, a calm confidence that made people listen when he spoke. His dark hair was neatly styled, his suit perfectly fitted. Amara didn't know who he was, but she could tell he was someone important. Suddenly, the man turned and their eyes met. For a brief moment, time seemed to slow. Amara felt a strange pull, a mix of curiosity and caution. The man smiled politely and walked toward her. "Good evening," he said, his voice smooth but strong. "I'm Daniel." "Amara," she replied, returning the smile but keeping her guard up. Daniel was charming and well-spoken. He asked about the charity and seemed genuinely interested in Amara's thoughts. She found herself relaxing a little, enjoying the conversation. It was rare for her to meet someone who listened so carefully. As the evening went on, the ballroom grew busier. People danced, laughed, and moved from table to table. Daniel stayed by Amara's side, his attention focused on her. But then, something unexpected happened. As they talked near the edge of the dance floor, Daniel reached out and gently placed his hand on Amara's waist. It was a familiar gesture in such events, sometimes a way to guide a partner or show connection. But Amara felt uncomfortable. She hadn't given him permission, and the sudden touch felt too close, too personal. Amara pulled back slightly. "Please don't do that," she said firmly but calmly. Daniel looked surprised. He had not expected her to react that way. Amara's heart was pounding, but she stood her ground. In that moment, she made a choice. Without thinking twice, she raised her hand and gave him a firm slap on the cheek. The room seemed to freeze. Gasps spread around the ballroom. Some guests stopped talking, their eyes wide with shock. Amara's hand still tingled, but she didn't regret it. Daniel stared at her, his expression unreadable. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Daniel touched his cheek, a slow smile spreading across his face. "You're bold," he said quietly. "Not many people would do that." Amara's voice was steady. "I believe in respect. And I don't like being touched without my permission." Daniel nodded slowly, as if understanding something deeper than words. "I respect that," he said. "Tell me, Amara, what made you so brave tonight?" Amara shrugged. "Maybe I just wanted to remind someone that I'm not afraid." Daniel's smile softened, and the atmosphere shifted. The earlier tension melted into something else, a strange respect, a beginning of something neither of them expected. As the night continued, the gala resumed its lively pace, but the moment between Amara and Daniel stayed in the minds of those who saw it. Whispers floated through the crowd. Who was this woman who dared to challenge the powerful Daniel Lee? Amara didn't know much about him, only that he was a man with a reputation one whispered about in the city's underground circles. But now, she realized that behind the stories was a man who, for once, had met someone who wouldn't be pushed around. When the event ended, Amara stepped out into the cool night air. The city buzzed with life around her, but inside, she felt calm and clear. She had stood up for herself and made a statement. But as she walked away, she couldn't shake the feeling that this night was only the beginning of something much bigger. Amara's story. Amara grew up in a close-knit family, one that valued honesty, kindness, and strength. Her mother was a teacher, and her father owned a small bookstore in their neighborhood. From a young age, Amara learned the importance of standing up for what she believed in. Her parents taught her to be proud of her heritage and to never let anyone diminish her voice. She had faced challenges before, sometimes from people who underestimated her or tried to push her around. But each time, she found a way to rise above, to prove her worth through hard work and determination. At work, Amara was known for her dedication and intelligence. She had recently started a small community program to help young girls build confidence and leadership skills. The charity gala was a chance for her to connect with others who shared her passion. That night, she wasn't expecting to meet anyone like Daniel Lee. Yet, in one unexpected moment, her quiet courage challenged a powerful man's world. Daniel's story. Daniel Lee was a man shaped by his past. Born in Seoul, he had come to America as a teenager with his family, chasing the dream of a better life. But the road was not easy. Daniel had to learn quickly how to protect himself and his loved ones in a world full of dangers and demands. He rose through the ranks of his family's business, gaining respect and fear in equal measure. His reputation was that of a man who was tough, decisive, and sometimes ruthless. But few people saw the man behind the mask, the boy who once dreamed of peace, friendship, and love. When he met Amara that night, something stirred inside him. Her strength and honesty were unlike anyone he had met before. When she slapped him, he didn't feel anger or shame. Instead, he felt intrigued and, strangely, a sense of admiration. A night to remember. As Amara walked home that night, she thought about the evening, the glittering lights, the music, and the unexpected moment that changed everything. She knew life was unpredictable, and sometimes courage meant standing alone, even when it was difficult. She didn't know what the future held, but deep down, she felt ready for whatever came next. For Daniel, the memory of that slap stayed with him. It was a reminder that power was not just about control, it was about respect, honor, and sometimes, learning from those brave enough to challenge him. And so, their stories began to intertwine, two lives from different worlds brought together by a moment of courage and the promise of something new. After that unforgettable night at the gala, Amara returned to her everyday life, but the memory of Daniel's intense gaze and the sharp slap she had given him lingered in her mind like an unexpected storm. She was aware of the rumors swirling around the city about Daniel Lee, how he was a powerful figure with many people watching his every move, but she had never imagined she would become part of his world, even in the smallest way. Days passed, and just as she began to settle back into her routine, she received an unexpected message, a simple, carefully worded note from Daniel, inviting her to meet him at a quiet cafe away from the city's noise. Amara hesitated. She wasn't sure if she wanted to step into a world so different from her own, a world filled with secrets and dangers she had only heard about in stories. But curiosity, and perhaps something deeper, urged her to accept. When she arrived at the cafe, she found Daniel waiting patiently at a corner table, his usual confident demeanor softened by something almost vulnerable in his eyes. They began to talk not as the powerful man and the bold woman who had clashed at the gala, but as two people trying to understand each other beyond the masks they wore. Daniel shared fragments of his life, his struggles growing up between two cultures, the heavy responsibilities that weighed on his shoulders, and the loneliness he felt despite his power. Amaro listened quietly, realizing that beneath his reputation was a man who longed for genuine connection. She told him about her dreams, her fears, and the reasons she fought so fiercely for respect and fairness. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, the barriers of their world slowly crumbling as they found unexpected common ground. Daniel confessed that he admired Amara's courage, how she had stood up to him without fear, something he rarely experienced. He promised that his intentions were sincere, that he wanted to know her, not as a prize or a challenge, but as a person. Amara felt a mix of emotions: cautious hope, fear of the unknown, and a strange excitement that she couldn't explain. Over the next few weeks, Daniel and Amara met often, their encounters filled with deep conversations, laughter, and moments of silence that spoke volumes. Daniel introduced her to a side of the city she had never seen: the quiet gardens hidden among skyscrapers, the small family-owned restaurants with flavors that reminded him of home, and the quiet places where he found peace. Amara, in turn, showed Daniel the beauty of simplicity, the warmth of friendship, the joy of helping others, and the strength that comes from being true to oneself. Yet, despite their growing connection, shadows from Daniel's past loomed large. Rival groups watched his every move, suspicious of his sudden openness, and some warned him that getting close to Amara could put her in danger. Daniel struggled with the choices before him: his loyalty to his world and the desire to protect Amara from the dangers he couldn't fully control. Amara, however, refused to hide or step away. She stood firm beside him, her bravery matching his in ways he had never imagined. Their bond became a silent promise that together they could face whatever came next. One evening, as the city lights flickered beneath them, Daniel took Amara's hand and spoke with quiet determination, telling her that she had changed him, made him believe in a future beyond power and fear. Amara smiled, feeling the truth in his words and knowing that her life was no longer the same. In that moment, they both understood that their meeting was not just chance, it was the start of a journey neither of them had expected but both were ready to embrace. And so, the dangerous Korean mafia boss and the fearless black woman began to write a new story, one of respect, trust, and the hope that love could bridge even the widest gaps between two very different worlds. As the days passed, Amara and Daniel's connection deepened, their meetings becoming a regular part of their lives despite the challenges both knew were waiting just beyond the horizon. Daniel began to reveal more of his world to Amara, one that was complex and often shadowed by the weight of responsibility he carried as a leader, but also a world where loyalty and family meant everything, even if it sometimes came at a great personal cost. Amara, with her unwavering spirit and honest heart, found herself drawn not only to the man Daniel was but also to the man he wished to become, someone who could step away from the darkness and find light in unexpected places. She listened carefully when he spoke of his past, of the sacrifices made, and the people he had lost along the way. Each story painted a picture of a man who had learned to protect himself by building walls, but who longed to break free from them. In return, Amara shared her own experiences, the struggles she had faced growing up, and the moments when she had felt both small and powerful in the same breath. Through their conversations, they discovered a shared desire for a better future, one where fear did not dictate their choices and where love could be a source of strength rather than weakness. Yet, as their bond grew, so did the risks surrounding them. Daniel's enemies watched closely, suspicious of the changes in him and wary of Amara's presence in his life. Rumors began to spread within Daniel's world, whispers questioning his judgment and loyalty. Despite this, Daniel remained steadfast in his resolve to protect Amara and to show her the true depth of his feelings. Amara, too, refused to be intimidated. She understood the dangers but believed that courage and honesty could overcome even the darkest threats. One afternoon, as they walked through a quiet park, Daniel reached out to hold Amara's hand, his voice steady as he spoke of his hopes for them both. He told her about the plans he was making not just for his business, but for their future, a life where they could both be free to be themselves without fear. Amara smiled, her heart full of a quiet happiness she had never known before. However, their journey was far from easy. There were moments of doubt, times when the pressure from Daniel's world seemed too much to bear. On one occasion, a close friend of Daniel warned him that his enemies were planning something that could put Amara in harm's way. Daniel's protective instincts surged, and he found himself torn between the life he had known and the new path he wanted to follow with Amara. But Amara stood firm, reminding Daniel that they were stronger together, that love required bravery and trust. Slowly, Daniel began to open up even more, allowing himself to be vulnerable in ways he never had before. He introduced Amara to his family, people who had shaped him and who, despite their tough exteriors, welcomed her with warmth and respect. Amara felt like she was stepping into a new world, one filled with tradition but also with hope for change. Through shared meals, quiet talks, and simple moments, they built a bridge between their two worlds, learning from each other and growing closer every day. Daniel's respect for Amara deepened beyond admiration. He saw her as his equal, his partner, and someone who made him want to be better. Amara, in turn, saw in Daniel a man fighting to break free from chains she could help loosen. Their love became a quiet rebellion against the expectations and dangers surrounding them, a promise that no matter what happened, they would face it together. And so, amid the bustling city and the shadowed corners of Daniel's world, a new story was being written, a story of two souls finding strength in one another, courage in their shared dreams, and hope that even the most unlikely love could heal old wounds and light the way forward. As time went on, the bond between Amara and Daniel grew stronger, yet the challenges they faced became more real and pressing. Daniel's world was full of complexities, and while he had opened his heart to Amara, the demands and dangers from his past never fully disappeared, reminding them both that love alone might not be enough to shield them from the forces working against their happiness. Amara, who had always been courageous and true to herself, found herself navigating a life that was increasingly intertwined with Daniel's, walking a careful path between trust and caution. Despite the difficulties, she refused to back away. She stood by Daniel's side, offering him support and strength, encouraging him to believe that together they could overcome the shadows cast by his old life. Daniel, who had long been guarded and controlled by expectations, began to see a future filled with hope, a future where he didn't have to hide behind power and fear. The two of them shared quiet mornings and lively evenings, discovering the joy of ordinary moments, cooking together, sharing stories about their childhoods, and dreaming aloud about the life they wanted to build. Amara's laughter brought light to Daniel's often serious world, and Daniel's patience gave Amara a sense of safety she had rarely felt before. Yet, the path was not without obstacles. Rival groups within Daniel's business started to question his change of heart, and subtle threats reminded them that danger still lurked nearby. One evening, as they sat in Daniel's penthouse overlooking the city lights, he confided in Amara the fears that weighed heavily on his mind, fears for her safety and doubts about whether he could truly leave his past behind. Amara reached out, taking his hands in hers, and told him that fear would never win if they faced it together. This promise gave Daniel the courage to make bold decisions, including reaching out to his closest allies to create a more peaceful way forward, hoping to protect the life he was building with Amara. Their love became a source of strength not only for them but for those around them as well, inspiring Daniel's family and friends to believe in change and forgiveness. Amara, too, found new confidence, growing into a role she never expected, that of a trusted partner who could stand with Daniel in a world that was often unpredictable and harsh. Their relationship was filled with small victories and tender moments that kept them grounded: a shared cup of coffee on a rainy morning, a simple walk in the park, or a thoughtful gift that showed how deeply they cared. Through it all, they learned to communicate openly, to listen without judgment, and to support each other's dreams and fears alike. Daniel's respect for Amara deepened beyond love; it was admiration for her courage, kindness, and unwavering spirit. Amara, in return, saw in Daniel a man capable of change and great love, someone who was learning to balance strength with vulnerability. Together, they began to build a new kind of family, one based on trust, respect, and mutual care rather than power or fear. Their story became a testament to the power of love to transform lives, to heal old wounds, and to create hope where there once was only uncertainty. As they faced the future hand in hand, Amara and Daniel knew that the journey ahead might still hold challenges, but they were ready to face them with courage, faith, and a deep belief in each other. And in the quiet moments between the chaos, they found peace, a peace born not from the absence of problems but from the strength of their bond and the promise of a life built together, forever. The days that followed marked a turning point in both Amara's and Daniel's lives, as they faced the realities of their relationship with courage and an open heart. Despite the challenges from Daniel's past and the skepticism of those around them, their commitment to each other grew stronger, anchored in trust and mutual respect that neither had fully experienced before. Amara's presence brought a new light to Daniel's world, one that slowly dissolved the barriers he had built over the years. She was more than just a partner; she was his confidant, his anchor, and the reminder that he could be more than the man his reputation suggested. Daniel, in turn, worked tirelessly to create a safer, more honest life for them both, reaching out to old allies with a new vision and finding ways to build bridges where there had once been walls. Together, they planned a future that looked very different from the one Daniel had imagined for himself, not one ruled by fear and power, but by love, kindness, and shared dreams. Amara continued to pursue her passions, bringing Daniel into her world of community service and hope, and he found himself inspired by her compassion and strength. They faced setbacks, of course, moments when the past tried to pull them back, when misunderstandings tested their patience, and when outside forces threatened to shake their foundation. But through it all, they chose each other, over and over again. In quiet conversations late into the night, they promised to always be honest, to listen with open hearts, and to stand firm no matter what storms came their way. Their families, once cautious and unsure, began to see the genuine love between them, and slowly, acceptance and warmth grew where doubt had lived before. One special evening, surrounded by close friends and family, Daniel surprised Amara with a simple but heartfelt gesture, a small ring symbolizing the promise of a future built together, not out of obligation or expectation, but from true love and respect. Amara's eyes filled with tears of joy as she accepted, knowing that this moment was the beginning of a new chapter, one where their love could grow free from the shadows of the past. Together, they dreamed of a life filled with laughter, support, and endless possibilities, a life where they could face the world side by side, as equals and as partners. As they walked hand in hand through the city streets, bathed in the soft glow of streetlights, they knew their journey was far from over, but that their hearts were ready for whatever came next. Their story had started with a bold act of defiance and respect, but it had blossomed into something far greater, a love that healed wounds, bridged divides, and showed that even the most unlikely people could find forever in each other. And so, in the quiet moments between the noise of the city, Amara and Daniel found peace in their shared dreams, strength in their union, and hope for a future where love was the most powerful force of all.